and welcome to the Doug Geiser Show, Year 2, brought to you by the Ashland University Journalism and Digital Media Department. I'm Cade Krakis, and I'm joined by Doug Geiser, the head coach of the Ashland University football team. Coach, thanks so much for joining me here today.
Thank you. Welcome back.
It's great to be back with you here, Coach. Well, we got to talk about this past weekend. A 41-21 20-point win over the Findlay Oilers. You have now solely clinched first place in the conference. How good does that feeling mean to the team?
It means we went 1-0 this past week, which is good. That's our goal every week, and the fact that we're able to play well against our rival is a good thing.
And Coach, this game against Findlay was expected to be more of a closer knit one, with you two being atop the GMAC. Obviously, some big offensive explosions really helped propel you guys past them. Was that a part of the game plan, or what was it looking like going into that game for you guys?
Well, we were looking to generate some explosive plays early on, and Trevor was in his zone. Tony Panunzio, who's going to be on the show later today, did a great job as well with contested catches, and the plan just all kind of came together.
And Coach, who were the game ball winners and standouts the team recognized this past week?
Yeah, the game ball winner was Tony Panunzio, and defensive player of the game was Devin Prude, did a great job at corner. Offensive player of the game was Trevor Brzezinski, and special teams player of the game was Cameron Blair for his job on the punt team. Our scout team players of the week on defense were Tommy Mordarski. On offense was Ed Bamer, and then on special teams it was a co-winner this week with Cameron Jewell and DeLon Moss.
Okay, Coach. So when you take a look at this past week as well, 900 total yards of offense nearly and 60 points. How does that speak volumes to just the GMAC and the level of play that we've seen this year in the conference?
We knew coming in that Findlay was a very, very high-powered offense, probably one of the best in the country, and definitely the best in the conference. And we knew we were going to score some points to be able to stay in the game with them. And anytime you can have a team. Remember, they were nationally ranked. Anytime you have a nationally ranked team in our conference, adds more credibility to the conference and more hype as well. So, I love the way that we're starting to get more recognition nationally.
And Coach, when you take a look at two players who connected really well this past week, quarterback Trevor Brzezinski and wide receiver Tony Panunzio, the two combined for two big touchdowns, 118 yards just between those two touchdowns. How has that chemistry between the two been built up this year?
It's been a work in progress, really. We've been banged up at the receiver position, and Tony was early in the year. So it's been great to have Trevor and his steadiness and keeping his poise throughout the whole year as his cast of characters have changed. And now that we're starting to get a little bit healthier, now we're starting to build those relationships back up, which we're really starting to work on at the end of last year. And it's been nice to see that come to fruition as we get healthy.
And Coach, last year we talked about Tony and kind of his story being a walk-on. How has he progressed even from last year to now this year, and especially with that big explosion breakout game?
He's continued. He hasn't gotten complacent. That's probably the biggest thing, is he continues to work and continues to put the time in, and he's been rewarded. His teammates have voted him as a captain of the team, and that's the regard that they hold him in, the way he goes about with his business. And so it's neat to see that story. It's another success story, and he kind of typifies what an Ashland man is.
And defensively, the team forced 4 turnovers this past weekend. What went right on that side of the ball to be able to explode like that and really help lead the team to a win?
Yeah, they thought going in that they really hadn't faced any very much pressure. The quarterback's really good. If you give him all day to sit back there, he's gonna dissect it, because his arm, he can touch anywhere on the field. So we're able to generate some pressure on him early, and I think that maybe contributed to it a little bit. But also, our guys made some tremendous plays on the ball when the situation arrived.
This is also the team's first win over a nationally ranked opponent since November of 2022. How does that speak volumes to just the growth of the team over time and just kind of that never give up mentality even when there's bumps in the road?
That's what Ashland's about, is you fight to the last echo of the whistle. And I've been really proud more than anything else of the growth of the team this year. From starting out, you look back 6 weeks, and just a lot of young guys that last year at this point, they were playing high school ball. Now they're starting to grow together. Our kudos to our older guys for leading and really showing the young guys the way, how we prepare, what the process is from week to week, never losing their poise and continue to fight to the end. And you're starting to see the fruits of that labor every week. And
Coach, how do you stay undefeated in conference play moving forward now going into this weekend?
Well, really, I could, you can say you just outscore the teams we play, but there's a lot more involved in that, obviously. Really what it is there's a process of preparation every single week. And you got to watch the tape, you got to lift the weights, you got to get treatment on your body if you're banged up a little bit. You got to practice and make sure the practice is good. It can't just be going through the motions. And if and only if you put in that preparation, you have a chance to go out and possibly be successful on Saturday. So we just got to continue that process.
Well, Coach, it was great sitting down with you, and deeper in today's episode, we'll go more in depth on this game upcoming against Thomas More this weekend.
Okay.
Thanks for joining me. It is now time for us to take a quick break and join you back here shortly. Stay tuned through this commercial break. You're watching the Doug Geiser Show right here on AUTV. Welcome back to the Doug Geiser Show. I am currently joined by standout wide receiver Tony Pannunzio and Coach Geiser. Tony, thanks so much for taking time out of your day to join me.
Thanks, Cade.
When you take a look at this past weekend, you had an exceptional game against Findlay. What really went into you having that breakout type of game?
It's just me given an opportunity this past week, just filling the role for the team. I think, fortunately, it was in my favor. I made some big plays. Kudos to Trevor for putting it on me all game long. He did a great job. It was really just me stepping up and filling the role for the team to get the win.
And Coach, building off of that a little bit, was that part of the game plan once Tony started to kind of catch fire just to keep feeding him that ball? Because 9 catches, 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, it was a really good game for him.
I think it was a combination of that, the preparation that Tony's put in, so when his number was called, he was able to perform. It was also kind of part and parcel of some of the coverage they were giving us. Some of the routes in our scheme came open against what they were giving us, and players stepped up and made a great play.
And Tony, last year we were fortunate enough to talk to you about kind of that journey for you being a walk-on to getting to where you are now. But there was a pretty big hiccup in the road early this year, going down with an injury and trying to work your way back. What was that process like?
Yeah, so earlier this year, kind of tweaked my hamstring in camp. It's been a process getting back. Kudos to the trainers. Sam, Savannah, Lydia, they did a great job working with me to get back. Really mentally, it was the biggest challenge as I was kind of slowly getting put back into practice and slowly worked back into games. Mentally making sure that I was ready to go. That's from getting just reps in practice on the side, taking mental reps. So working from there and then slowly working back up the physical endurance and the physical reps. It was a long process, but I'm fortunate it worked out.
And Coach, what does that process look like when you see a guy kind of might be stumbling a little bit, he might be tweaking up a little bit? How do you make sure that they're good to go eventually? And what's that process like back to recovery?
As a coach, the only question I ever ask, and obviously we depend on Sam quite a bit, is can you do your job? That's the biggest thing. If you can't do it, hey, then you go in rehab and you get yourself to a point where you can eventually be able to step into your role. And I know it was very, very frustrating for Tony, because I know he wanted to be out there and especially as a leader of the team, but did a great job putting the extra time in with our training staff, and it worked out in our favor.
And Tony, what was that connection with you and Trevor been like this season? How has it continued to grow and blossom?
Trevor's been awesome. He's a quarterback that anyone could ask for. I've been really appreciative of Trevor, especially these past 2 years working with him. I think last year, getting a head start and working with him, getting game reps in the 2023 season, that was huge. So we definitely built off of that, and the chemistry just built from there. So I'm very fortunate for that.
And taking a look at a big thing in graduation last year was the loss of Desmond Libertus. He ended up graduating away, and that left a hole in the locker room. How did you guys as a wide receiver room kind of recollect yourselves and move forward from that?
Dez is awesome. Big shoes to fill for sure. Him and Jake McLaughlin, they were great contributions to the team last year. The one thing about our receiver room is I think that we're really dynamic. We can spread the ball out on Saturdays. A couple weeks ago, Drew Johnson had a big game against Hillsdale. Jamari Kroom had one against Tiffin, and then I fortunately had a few opportunities that I tried to take advantage of this week. So, and even Tyler Davis just getting some big plays in every single game. And then the younger guys stepping up. Being able to spread the ball out like that is huge, and that's a huge advantage to our offense. So definitely looking to build on that in the weeks to come.
And you talked about some of the younger guys, and for you, have you taken any underneath your wing in that wide receiver room to help when you're gone, they can then fill your shoes?
Yes, absolutely. We do have some young guys that had to step up and fill roles. Isaiah Ramsey, Luke Brenner, Akil Martin, those guys have done a really big job. They had a big challenge in front of them, and I think they handled it real well. So for me, my responsibility was just to take the experience that I've had over the past couple years with the guys that have taught me and kind of mentor them and kind of just continue it on. So it's just the standard of Ashland. So I was very proud of them, and hopefully they can just continue to grow.
And Coach, have you seen that too with Tony trying to keep some of these younger guys in check underneath them and build them up?
It's a neat dynamic on the team, and we really challenge our older guys, our returner guys, and we empower them to be leaders of the team. And they know that the obligation is seeing beyond themselves. And it's a big part of it, our expectation for them is mentoring the young guys as we come through, because somebody did that to them through the years. So it's a neat dynamic to be a part of. It's just part of the culture here and something we definitely feed as coaches.
And Tony, my last question for you here is obviously the first 2 games of the season didn't go your guys' way, losing those 2, but now have won the last 4. How has that locker room really banded together and not allowed some of the humps in the road and those bumps really tear you guys down?
Yeah, I think as Coach Geiser mentioned earlier, it's the big thing of staying united and staying one. And I think the leaders did a great job at that, keeping the younger guys and making sure they know our task and keeping them focused. And the preparations every week in practice have been better and better. So I think that's a big factor to blame for such a success on Saturdays. Hopefully we can just allow that to grow, especially this week, coming up with a good opponent, Thomas More. So hopefully we can just keep the train rolling.
Well, Tony, thanks so much for joining me here today.
Thank you, Cade.
When we return back from this next commercial break, we'll be joined by Coach A.J. Nikolai. Stay tuned right here for the Doug Geiser Show on AUTV. Welcome back to the Doug Geiser Show. I'm currently joined by Coach A.J. Nikolai, who oversees the team's tailbacks, kickers, and punters, and is also the team's video coordinator. Coach, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to sit down with me.
Absolutely.
To hop straight into things, Coach, how have you addressed your position group's play throughout the first 6 weeks of action?
You know, good. It's been good. You know, we've had a lot of inexperience in our room, in the running back room, that is. You know, we've got the one senior, Pat Blueball, and then 2 guys that are, you know, making their first starts this year. You know, it's been a continual improvement, but just kind of, you know, incorporating that culture of growing each week has been the cool thing. But I think they're playing pretty well overall.
And speaking of those tailbacks in more of a positive light, obviously from last year too. I mean, you had so many graduates, so many seniors, and then having pretty much a whole new running back room. How have they banded together to find success?
Yeah, you know, it's always hard when you lose, you know, Larry, Gio, and Eli Potts. You know, those guys from last year. It was my first year as a full-time coach last year, coaching a room of 3, you know, seniors. That makes my job in life pretty easy. But you know, kind of transitioning into these guys that I currently have, you know, I'm having to work a little bit, which is cool. You know, it's a really cool experience. You know, having Lando and Ty being their first year starting. Pat, you know, been around the program a lot, hasn't necessarily started a lot of games or played a lot. You know, the 3 of them have really kind of meshed well together. They're all really, you know, tight and having a good year. So it's been a lot of fun coaching those 3.
And how do they stay ready for whenever their number is called, and specifically their role too? Because you've got, I mean, the power backs, elusive backs. I mean, you look at a variety of different players there.
Absolutely. Well, you know, to be completely honest, is, you know they have to play as hard as they possibly can because they know the next rep's not promised. We got 3 really talented guys that are kind of playing for us this year, and you know, you've seen a couple different times throughout the year where, hey, Lando stepped up, you know, this previous week and had a really, really good game, right? I look back at the Tiffin game, Ty Stevenson really stepped up, had a great game, really ended that game for us, you know, with a lot of carries. You go back to the Hillsdale game, you know, Pat came in, you know, was playing a little bit of kind of some slot split out receiver, had a couple 3rd down catches, you know, was carrying the ball, had some, you know, pretty big key plays in that game. So, you know, they know, and it's something we talk about all the time is, you know, they have to bust their tail because they don't know when the next rep's coming, and whoever's hot for that game is going to be the guy that's the main feature back.
And what was that game plan like for you guys heading up against a nationally ranked opponent in Findlay this past weekend?
Yeah, it's always fun playing a nationally ranked opponent. Those are the games you come and play college football for. Those are the big games. I think all three of them really prepared really well. They watch a ton of film on their own. You can see on the video services who's watching film and the time, and every week they're watching a ton of film. And I think that you see that kind of correlate to how they play on the field. And in terms of game plan, we as Ashland, we try and do what we do, and it's cool because they play really well within the system, and there are three guys that all have three different styles that we can use and kind of put them in different spots, and you see them go out there and they play well, and it's awesome.
And we take a look at the kicking side of things now. A.J. Rhodes, he's had a tremendous year this year and has been lauded for GMAC Special Teams Player of the Week twice. How has he continued to grow over time?
Yeah, it's really been pretty cool to see A.J. kind of grow. This is my third season, and that the first season I was here, if I remember correctly, he was not the starting kicker, and throughout that year he became. We were actually kicking two. Storm Elsesser and A.J. were kind of splitting the duties of the kicker, and to see him kind of go from not being really the guy to now he is the guy, and kind of the steps he's taken has been really cool. I'm a ex-college kicker as well, and it's cool because he's about 50 times better than I ever was, and it's really cool to coach a guy like that, and just seeing him grow up and kind of become a man and kick well has been really cool. So I've loved watching his progress throughout the few years.
And shifting to the punting side of things, Ashland has a very unconventional style of punting where sometimes the quarterback can drop back and boot it away, but also you can still go to that conventional punter in Jaden Cook at times. Yep. What has the practice kind of looked like for them to always be ready no matter what?
This is the first time I've been a part of a team that uses their quarterbacks to punt, and it comes we practice the scan punt every day. We practice spread punt every day. Our punt teams, we work it every day. And we have periods every single day where our quarterbacks are punting, as well as, Jaden Cook, our starting punter, was a recruited quarterback. And, we discovered that he could punt by using the scan punt method, and we put that punt team in, and he was the guy, and he's doing really well doing that. But then we also still have the ability to have Trevor punt, have Cam Blair punt, all those guys. They work it every day, and it's just something we kind of do here.
And lastly, Coach, for you, how important would this win be this coming weekend against Thomas More for the team?
Yeah, obviously every week's big. We got to keep the steam rolling, and that's what we're going to try and do. And every game is one that you need to win. And in college football, everyone's important, and you gotta kind of keep moving forward and have that kind of thought process of the next one is the most important.
Well, Coach, thanks so much for joining me here today. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
When we return back from this next commercial break, we'll wrap up today's show with Coach Geiser. Stay tuned right here for the Doug Geiser Show on AUTV. Welcome back to the Doug Geiser Show right here on AUTV. Coach, it's now time for this final segment. Before we dive into the upcoming season schedule and current GMAC standings, we have to talk about this weekend's upcoming game against Thomas More. How important would it be for you guys to stay undefeated in GMAC play now that you're solely in first place in the conference?
Well, the biggest part of it is you're still in control of your own destiny, and with goals we set at the beginning part of the year. So that's always a good position to be in. But the more important thing too is you keep yourself on a roll, and the success we've been having the last 4 weeks just adds some confirmation to what we preach every week with the process and the preparation. So once again, it would add more credence to that and allow us to hopefully stay on a roll.
And Coach, who should the fans be on the lookout for on both these two sides from the standout margin?
I would think with Thomas More, you look at it, you start defensively. They got one of the better defensive lines in the league. and high ranking in sacks. They get a lot of pressure on the quarterback. Their inside linebacker leads them in tackles, and he's kind of the straw that stirs the drink on that side of the ball. On the offensive side of the ball, they are very mobile at quarterback. They give you the challenge of the quarterback run, which adds a hat in the run game. And it caused us some problems at various times last year with that. And, along with that, Cade, this is only the second time we've ever faced Thomas More. And so we're still kind of learning about their staff and how they adjust. We have last year's game, obviously, but, sometimes the faces of the players change. So that and, with their recruiting base too, they're not recruiting some of the same areas we are. So there are some unknowns there too that we'll have to adjust to during the game.
All right, Coach, now we'll take a look at the upcoming games that are coming along in this schedule as we hit this middle half of the year. When looking at the schedule, we are just over halfway through the season now. What is the focus for the team down the stretch of the season?
The focus now is, you're halfway through, is you got to be able to keep your momentum without being emotionally zapped. I mean, we've been through a very tough 4-game stretch, very emotional, very hard hitting, and teams that have been traditionally really good. But now you look at the upcoming schedule, Thomas More and Northwood are both having tremendous years. And so it doesn't get any easier, even though you're stepping into week 7 at this point. So keeping the team right on that focused beam at that point is really a challenge.
Also, the table has started to shake and shift with you guys taking sole control of the #1 spot in the conference standing. How good does that feel for you guys, and who do you have on your radar still that's in that mix?
Well, as you look at it, we're just, as you know me, we're just looking at Thomas More at this point. And Thomas More is, they're 2-2, 3-3, but they had a real big win at Ohio Dominican a couple weeks ago, shutting them out at their place. Almost knocked off a nationally ranked Davenport team. So it's a very dangerous team. You're playing them at home, which they play really well at home. So it's another big challenge for us as we go into this weekend.
Well, Coach, my last question for you here. How important is it for you guys to keep this momentum going and not slow down by any means going into this next week against Thomas More?
Hey, we just take it week to week. And the goal, as it is every week, is going 1-0. And our sole focus is on the Saints of Thomas More. And it's just the success part of it is, as we talked before, is just a confirmation that the process we go through, that it works. And if you trust in the process, you put the time in the process, you're going to get the fruits of that labor afterwards.
Well, Coach, thanks so much for joining me here today.
Appreciate it.
As a reminder, be sure to tune into 88.9 WRDL for exclusive coverage of AU football on the Early Birds Word Tuesday mornings at 7:30 a.m. I'm Cade Krakus saying thank you so much for tuning into the Doug Geiser Show right here on AUTV.